If you asked, what's the most important year in mecha history, I think you would probably get the answers. 1979, the release of the original Mobile Suit Gundam. If someone goes for a deep cut, you might get a mention of the New Century Declaration, the source of the series' name, in 1981. But I personally would probably say 1972, this episode's subject. This isn't an at all unique take, it'd probably be the most common response, but I do think it is the correct take. While probably most notable for being the year the first piloted mecha was created, it's also notable for being the year the first in-color mecha anime premiered. These two progressions alone would probably be notable enough to make it a standout year, but in my opinion, the best thing that came out this year isn't either of those. It's a separate project that is much more indebted to the past ideas of the genre than the more forward-thinking ones that define this year. But you'll just have to wait and see what that work is, because we're starting this year off strong with... I think this show might have Stockholm syndromed me a bit. When you spend more than a month watching a single show, I think it's kinda inevitable you will become at least a bit attached to it emotionally. This show is good at being a mainly non-serialized plot of the week show. A lot of the one-off plots are at least unique. There are enough status quo changes to make it not feel like it's just 90 straight episodes of nothing and then an ending. The first and second half of the show handle this slight serialization very differently, with the first half spending a lot of time leading up to the changes, with the scander being teased for many episodes before it actually gets made, while the second half of the show speeds up the changes but also moves the build up, besides something like the 3-episode arc for Diana. Once Gorgon shows up, the show kicks it into overdrive. Here are episodic status quo shifts, so at the very least a new attack for Mazinger. To give an example, it takes till episode 39 for Count Bracken to show up and be the first new villain character. Gorgon takes another 29, while Viscount then only takes 15 to show up after Gorgon. Not to mention that in between those, we have the Hover Plighter upgrade to the Jet Plighter, Diana A gets introduced, Verde Astra gets killed off. All of this along with smaller changes, like introducing new weapons for Mazinger and Dr. Moriori getting killed all in half the time it took Mazinger to get the scander early in the show. Looking at later works, you might assume the monsters of the week are consistently good, but this is very much a case where most of the good designs are the ones that got into later work, while the more iffy designs got forgotten to time. The coloring especially feels weird. Even main designs like Diana feel very kids coloring book with their color schemes. I think the main problem with the show overall though is that the character writing is not great, especially for an episodic super long show. All the main cast rotates between being the butt of the joke and the person making the joke in a way that makes all the characters just feel kind of dickish and unlikable. Koji especially just comes off like a jerk throughout the entire show because he, 1, sucks at piloting, and 2, is never really nice to anyone. The villains are a bit of a savior in this case, with their dynamic being a lot more fun ironically. But even with that, the actual monsters of the week being emotionless machines makes them a lot more boring than they could be. Later shows like Daiton make the monster of the week an individual character rather than just an emotionless robot. This reason Minerva X is probably the most notable one-off villain from the show, is because she is a character all on her own. Same with something like Spartan or Danube. They are characters that you care about, so there's more to the episode beyond just what skill challenge will Mazinger face. But I do think there's intrigue added by the unique episodic challenges. The episode which Sayaka has to pilot is neat, the one where Koji is blind is a neat idea, stuff like that. That is not really enough to carry a whole episode in my opinion. This is a problem later shows like even Getter fix by having each individual monster be piloted, or made by a unique enemy with a personality, or just being a unique enemy all on its own. There are definitely some pros to the Mazinger style of the format. Like there's a reason Baron Asher and Count Bracken are infinitely more iconic than even the best Daiton baddies. It's because they are there for more than a week, even if that does maybe make the individual episodes feel less unique. Speaking of Minerva X, it's really funny that she's kinda worse Spartan. Like, Yacism aside, I think Spartan just pulls off the nice mechanical beast idea better. While this show lasted across a couple years, I am still going to discuss the ending of this here rather than saving it for a later episode because I just think that would be a bit unnecessary. The ending of the show feels very rushed despite there being a lead up to it. There's no real epic final battle. Hell King Gordon is a manga only element, so Dr. Hell just gets killed off in the ghoul. The actual mechanical beast of the episode, Saga 03, is very nothing. He like does karate, that's his gimmick. The actual final episode is also weird in a different way. If you ever watch like Ben 10, it reminds you of the last season of the original Ben 10, which was made in preparation for Alien Force and feels super different writing-wise, because it's by the Alien Force team. I assume the last episode of this is similar, and it was written much more as a great Mazinger lead-up than a final episode of Mazinger Z, if that makes any sense. I wouldn't say that makes the episode bad. If anything, it's one of the better single episodes of the series, probably better than the actual finale that precedes it. Just feels like a very different episode, which is odd for a finale. Go Nagai in the early 70s is really good at writing. While not nearly as good as Devilman, this is in a lot of ways a lot better than most of the anime. Part of that is definitely just my preference for this version of the characters. While the anime has most of the characters being really aggressive with each other, they're a lot chiller in this. While this arguably makes some of the cast more generic, Sayaka especially, I think it also makes them just more likable. Koji and Sayaka are a lot more believable as characters that would even talk to each other, much less like each other, if they aren't just two people that fight constantly and don't really interact at all beyond that. The actual plots in this aren't really much special beyond the opening. The Danube story and the Salute invasion, which are all adapted semi-faithfully in Shin, which, makes sense with what that's doing, but also hurts this as a work of it. Why need this when its best parts are also somewhere else, kinda done better, I think this stands well enough alone as a work. You won't know the backstory of Boss Boro, or the Jet Scander, or really any villain past Bryoken. Those details aren't really important to what the work is doing. I'm imagining a version of this manga that was fully standalone rather than expecting you to get stuff because it happened in the anime. That would probably either be the best version of Mazinger, or would have just been Go Nagai going insanely off the rails the way Devilman did, which that would kind of result in an interesting franchise split, but that's not what we got. Also, on the topic of differences from the anime, Athena is a much cooler design than Diana, which is very much just girl Mazinger, which is a task Minerva X already did better. Something I should note. The version of this manga you probably have / will read if you go to check it out, and the one I read for this project, is technically a combination of two manga, both by Go Nagai. The Shonen Jump run, and another one that was in TV Magazine. You definitely can't tell where each part is from because the TV Magazine stuff is closer tonally to the anime than the original manga. I would suggest just checking out the Shonen Jump stuff if you want the best experience, or reading them both separately, which I think, since this video has been written, is much more available. And now for probably the least interesting thing discussed this time. Astro Ganga is a show probably best known as either the first color mecha anime or isn't that Chargeman Ken? I know about that. And honestly, those are the two most interesting things about it. The plot is a pretty average secret hero has to protect the Earth from alien invasion thing. It's all the tropes. Best friend who doesn't know the secret and figures out near the end, scientist dad, tragic backstory, the hits. I think that backstory is honestly one of the more interesting parts of the show. Early on there's a flashback episode where it's revealed that the main character, Contrio's mom, was an alien from a planet destroyed by the main enemy alien, the Blasters. His parents also raised Contrio to be the pilot, core, whatever, of Ganga, the titular robot who is made of living metal from his mom's home planet. It's a much more in-depth backstory than you would expect, honestly. Feels more like something from a robot romance show than anything else we've talked about. If you understood that Chargeman Ken reference earlier, you would probably expect this show to look very bad. Honestly, it looks fine. Not much worse than Toei Mazinger. Talking about a visual comparison to Mazinger, the designs are definitely not nearly as good as those ones, especially if you ignore the more iffy Toei designs and just focus on the iconic ones. I think where this show succeeds the most is brevity. Standing at a pretty short 26 episodes, and its episodic plots, which are all pretty unique and give more interesting scenarios than just Ganga has to kill the big guy who is hard to kill. I learned after finishing the show and writing this segment that this does have good subs, by Discotech even. The release is just out of print, and it doesn't seem to have been yipped anywhere at the time of the writing, so I didn't know. So this is one of the few shows I will have watched with bad subs, because I think from now on, I will be skipping over anything that has bad subs. I don't want to be giving out false info and uninformed opinions, so I will only be talking about and watching shows with good subs I can access for this project. I feel like that is just better if I do end up continuing this. For this episode, should this really be included in this video? Pick, it's Babel second. The reason this is an iffy pick is both because it started in 1971 and the straight up mecha stuff is secondary. Most action is Esper psychic battles. The reason I'm talking about it is first, because I thought it was released in 1972 while I made this video, and second, because it's a Yokoyama work with a mech, and it plays with a lot of similar ideas as the other stuff discussed, alongside the fact that it'll come up later with its remakes, which are a lot more mecha. Babel Second focuses on the comically forever war between two psychic descendants of an alien that secretly made the Tower of Babel and also a bunch of other shit. Whenever you think this manga is going to shift into a new direction, it looks you in the eyes and calls you a dumbass. The villain gets killed. Psych, he's fine. He gets killed again. Psych, he's revived by alien goo. He gives up his grudge and accepts defeat one final time. Nah, he was fucking with ya. It's honestly really funny how drawn out this conflict becomes. The first time feels dumb, second time is honestly annoying, but after that it's just funny. It's so funny by then that all of them, looking back, just feels really comical. I think bullshit resurrections aside, the mind games and interplay between the titular, Babel, and Yomi are really well done. There's a lot of interplay and back and forth. Babel's head start with the power of the tower, Yomi gaining the ability to control those same powers, Babel's reveal of new powers. This tug of war continues for the whole manga, and is always pretty strong. It's kind of Death Note-y if I had to compare it to a more well-known work. I think the work's main problem is that it doesn't really have much beyond that back and forth. Not even a lot thematically beyond a simple god or devil duality showcased by Babel and Yomi. There's not even any character really in Babel and Yomi, with Babel becoming a pretty static peer, entirely just a hero type blank slate once he beats Yomi the first time, and Yomi becoming a comically evil nothing man with no deeper motivation or anything. I think overall this work is impressive for how unique it is, but is it really much beyond that? Probably would be a great foundation for an adaptation though. Realizing now that sounds like a transition sentence, like I'm gonna talk about the anime now, that comes out in 1973, so I'm not actually going to do that. But I will be talking about... That's too stupid of a bit. Fuck. 9 children being given the power to decide justice, and the opposing justices they must fight. That is the basic premise of The Moon. If I had to describe The Moon simply, I would say that it's a manga you will really think about. It's one of those works that clings to the back of your mind and will come up whenever something related comes up. Things this work inspired, things that touch on its same ideas, stuff that even just came out around the same time will make you think about it, at least a little bit. Touches on so many ideas and concepts and themes, from minor to major within its three arcs. It's definitely a work that could have only really been made when it was. Obvious analogs to Yukio Mishima, citing discussions from the time about how Japan treated its elderly, the ending being a very blatant global warming metaphor. It's very interesting in topics of its day. I also think it's a great showcase that the way fiction laundered current events through itself makes the ideas of the time, in a way, timeless. Us as readers now might have not much use for an opinion on the politics of 70s era Japan, but those politics still have more broad meanings today. I usually try to avoid plot synopsis type analysis because I feel like it hurts the video, both for people who have never experienced the work and for people who have. It can be treated as a replacement for the original by newbies, and it's just nothing for people who have read it, but I feel the need to do it for the ending of The Moon. So skip ahead or stop here if you don't want to hear spoilers, because you really should read The Moon. The last arc of The Moon starts out with out of season snow. A strange floating gap in the snowfall moves around the town, dropping icicles and killing animals. The next day, it's all gone. Eventually it's revealed to be caused by alien dog people. one of which is captured and sold to a Yitch man. After a back and forth of trying to save the captured dogman from the businessman, who is trying to make money off of it, and eventually deciding instead to try and make money from alien weaponry, the aliens decide to unleash a mold that will kill all life on Earth as a final test. After a long struggle by the kids to destroy the mold machine, the manga ends without confirming if they succeed or not. Instead, ending off with a quote from Jean Christophe Part 9. God was fighting. God was suffering. Fighting and suffering with all who suffer. For God was life. The drop of light fallen into the darkness. Spreading out, reaching out. Drinking up the night. I don't know what this quote meant in its original context. But within the context of the moon, I think I do know what it means. I think I get it. It just means that, on some level, we have to fight. We have to live and fight to live, no matter if things are hard or sad. No matter if things challenge your own justice, your own God, your own way of thinking. You must fight to live. You won't ever know how the story of the moon ends, because the story of the moon is still going. It will go on until that light goes out, whether it be to nuclear bombs, to global warming, or even to dog aliens. Probably will eventually go out, but we should still struggle. We can't let Earth die off just because the rich, the old, the powerful want to live in their own personal utopias. Because they want to consume as much of the world as possible, not caring to leave it in a livable state for others. For the young, that are the true justice. I think that's what the moon is saying in its final moments. I think that's what it's saying throughout its whole text. You should read the moon if you haven't. Even if you have, I think you should. I think even with the ending spoiled, it will still amaze you. It's one of my favorite manga ever. More than that, it's probably one of my favorite works of art ever. In this episode segment of Talk About Stuff very briefly so that people don't bring it up in the comments to dunk on me, there's a couple things. Yobot K came out and is notable for being by the guy who made basically all non-Ultraman Toku you see talked about, Shotaro Ishinomori. It has a Yobot, but it's not really mecha in a cultural sense, in my opinion at least. Thunder Mask by Osamu Tezuka is also a Henshin Hero thing mainly, so like, I'm not talking about it, I guess. Astro Gengar is kind of the line I'm drawing on, basically a Henshin Hero work for now. There's also Oda, not that one's version of Mazinger, which is untranslated, so you know, can't talk about it, though I'm very interested in his versions of Mazinger and Great Mazinger. I think his Gundaiser is translated. Makin Liner 0011 Henshin Seo is about Yobot dogs that combine into a spaceship. Yeah, I could have brought it up, but it just doesn't feel relevant, I guess. I wrote the majority of this video months ago. While I was gearing up to finish it and doing a bit of cleaning, my headphones broke and I didn't want to use a worse microphone, so I kinda just let it sit. This feels weird to me now. A project I was so passionate about now kinda just feels disconnected from everything. I still feel connected to it. I'm currently watching stuff for the follow-up to it. I guess this feeling is kinda notable for this exact episode, being both connected to the past and already having moved past it. Is that not the primary notable aspect all of these works have? The moon being a remote control Yobot, but also feeling so ahead of its time in its themes and tone. Mazinger moving past remote control, but also still having the same feel that stuff like the giant Yobo Tokusatsu did. Astro Gengar being a weird mix of later 70s mecha ideas, Henshin Hero concepts, and more. They all feel both very of their time and completely out of time. It's a very unique feeling. I wish the me that wrote the rest of the script could have finished this video, but maybe it's best that it's this me. I hope you enjoyed this, and are excited to see it continue maybe. Next time, we're seeing the direct responses to Mazinger Z. One being a direct sequel, and the other a more unique response that branches off of the same source. The year is 1974, and Mazinger has died. Long live Mazinger. Sorry for doing an afterword of this video that already has an afterword, but it's been another full year since I wrote the last one, so I feel like I need to put something here. In that year, I've grown a lot as a person. On a very physical level, I'm no longer a shut-in. I've gotten a much better computer, which is nice for making these videos. I'm in my first ever serious relationship, and I think that's the crux of a lot of that growth. Finally feeling like I'm connected to the world around me, other than just yachting alone is really nice, even if I'm bad at it. I can't really bullshit a connection to the video this time. I guess I just had to explain why this video is the way it is. I want to make more of these again. Now that I'm someone that can connect, I want to try and use that connection better, I guess. And this is a way to do that, I hope. See ya next time, if next time comes.